like to welcome you all to IT Community Appreciation Day here at the State Capitol. Our beautiful State Capitol grounds have a number of memorials that honor our state's peace officers, firefighters, veterans, and our pioneers. As a retired CIO and a part of the state IT community for 25 years, I believe that it is also important to remember you folks in the IT community who are the unsung heroes who work for the state of California. Whether you support our desktop computers, our networks, or whether you are a programmer or a project manager, your efforts have driven innovations that have improved public access to governmental services for millions of Californians. They've improved the state's operational efficiency and increased the productivity of hundreds of thousands of employees. Unfortunately, within the state capitol, our state IT efforts are often criticized and even vilified. Many simply don't know enough about technology to understand the vital role you all play in state operations. Most also don't understand the critical role of the state's that the IT community plays in an increasingly dangerous world of cybercrime and cyber war. During these difficult fiscal times, our state more than ever needs you and leaders like John Thomas Flynn to carry us into the future. It is an honor to be with you here today. Thank you all for what you do for the state of California. I'd like to turn it over.
Alan, thank you very much for those very kind words. I especially appreciate it. It's ironic that we're standing on the south steps of the State Capitol building, home of the terrible ordeal with a truck coming up here a decade or so ago. It caused a great fire. It's also the anniversary of Tiananmen Square, but we're not going to let those things take away from this event today. I know with Alan's passion and my good looks, we'll be running this state in 2 years. I asked you all here today, outside this great building, not to give a bloviating campaign speech, because I know you didn't want to hear that, and I didn't want to give it. I call this rally the State IT Community Appreciation Day, because as Alan has said, sometimes the state IT folks are the Rodney Dangerfields and not getting credit for the fact that without state IT technology, without state IT workers, without the state IT vendor community, government would cease to function in the state of California, and we have to remember that. As I said, I really wanted to have this rally to recognize and appreciate the state IT investment, the employees, and the IT vendor community, and it's important because most of all, I really appreciate the encouragement I've gotten from you as I've been out on the campaign, honking of horns at events, especially the emails and suggestions that people come up to me at times, and the suggestions that the community has about how we can improve government have been absolutely fascinating and the most enjoyable thing I've had during this campaign. Just as an example, a person from DMV came up to me and said, you know, what about if we open automobile registration and licensing processes using technology at shopping malls throughout the state? Would that be convenient or what? What a great idea. Why didn't they think of something like that? That's something that we could do. What about a large telecom provider came up to me along with many, many vendors and said, you know, with mobility, we could actually be much more productive workers in the state of California. We could get rid of landlines, not confiscate cell phones. Those are important ideas, things we have to listen to. And listen to this from Caltrans. Think of all the cameras and the highways, soon to be drones in the sky, right, Alan? Think of all that tape. Think of every accident in any major road in California probably has been taken, it's probably had a camera eye on it. Think what insurance companies would pay for that kind of information. That's the kind of thinking we need, and that's the kind of thing I'm hearing when I'm out on the campaign trail. And also from state fraud investigators and the IT community that serves them, they're talking about reducing waste and fraud not by thousands of dollars, not by tens of thousands of dollars, not by millions. They're talking billions of dollars in savings if the right political minds will say, hey, we're going to make this technology, we're going to make it work for us, and we're not going to relegate it to second-class status, which has often happened and happening too often in this administration. My campaign called for three things: to create jobs, first of all; secondly, to get rid of this nanny state government that has become so intrusive in our private lives; and finally, to reduce government spending through more efficient government utilizing technology. Technology is a focus here today. Those of us who know government well and know technology know that we've only scratched the surface in what we could be doing. There's a lot more. Without technology, government doesn't function, as I said before. So I call upon the governor not to dismiss it, not to downgrade the technology agency, but to unleash the whirlwind out there, to listen as I have to this IT community, agencies and vendor partners who have identified billions in savings just through technology. I arrived in Sacramento almost 20 years ago this month. Attended the GT West conference right across the street at the convention center, and actually walked over here on these grounds because coincidentally I was being interviewed to become the first CIO for the state of California. And I had time on my schedule to walk around these magnificent grounds with the sequoia and the grandeur of the Italian marble pine that's still over in the corner here. And I still enjoy it even today. These are symbolic of the great heritage we Californians have. What duties and responsibilities that reside in us, in our great Golden State. We must answer the call as well. This election does not end here. I'm not going to let it end here. To paraphrase Tennyson, who I've always enjoyed, how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust, not to shine in use. We need strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Our passion is important, and for all of us who share it, technology-driven excellence in government is the answer. We must keep the passion. This is too important. The stakes are too high, and we shall not fail. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Keep your suggestions coming, and yes, we still accept donations. FlynnAssembly2001.com. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, are you open to answering a few?
I'd be glad to answer a question. Kelsey, what is it?
Perfect. Are we all set up, good to go? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the governor's reorganization plan. Parts you like about it, parts you don't like about it.
I am a government reorganization fan from the get-go. Government is a large bureaucracy, and like any bureaucracy, it can be more efficient and effective, particularly government bureaucracies, because there's politics, there's union, there's a lot of extraneous circumstances that the private sector doesn't face. So I was in 90% of the governor's consolidation plan. I am behind 100%. I'm not crazy about consolidation plans that say there's no money to be saved and don't identify cost savings, and that's a shame, because why consolidate if you're not saving money? They just lend words to that, kind of a palliative. There's going to be savings. Well, they should have identified the savings. But this group and this building a lot of times don't want to identify savings because it may have to lay off somebody. And if you lay off somebody, that's anathema to the union leaderships that controls this building right now. But the part about the technology, Governor Brown, you know, used to be, he was the leader in technology when he was governor. Everybody made fun of him into satellites and things like that everybody does now. But, you know, why in the world, when he gives a speech and he mentions Apple and Hewlett-Packard and all these wonderful IT companies in his State of the State, in his first few minutes he's talking about them, at the same time he's deciding to say, you know, the technology agency, the strongest IT governance organization in the country, they're going to downgrade it to a department again. And that doesn't make sense. The state of California spends billions. I mean, it's like $4 or $5 billion a year with another portfolio of about $6 billion a year. That's $11 billion a year. That is the third highest level of spending in the state. Education, healthcare services, and technology. It's bigger than the vast corporate industrial complex and corrections. It's a mistake to downgrade technology. It makes everything you have to do in technology leadership, it makes everything more harder. So 95% behind the governor on the consolidation. Wish there were more savings identified, but he's making a big mistake when it comes to technology. It's too important. This is California. This is the 21st century, not the 19th or 20th.
So do you consider the governor's proposal, or how he eliminated several state cell phones, do you consider that to be a downgrade of technology as well? Would you support that decision?
This has been called the age of mobility. You don't confiscate cell phones. You don't confiscate mobile phones. You confiscate landlines, plain and simple. California was the laughingstock of the country over that confiscation of cell phones. And here people are patting themselves on the back. They have Department of General Services has rooms full of these cell phones that people go over and take photo ops with. It's embarrassing. It's a shame. Never should have happened.
But it did save the state money, though, didn't it?
I don't think it did. If you talk to the folks at Sprint that had the contract for cell phones, I think you'll hear a different story. They're basically giving those things away.
And what, in your opinion, what would happen if we invested more into technology in the state of California?
Well, as I've said before, it's a rich target environment, and there's so much spending in areas that people, frankly, in a government bureaucracy, you get appointees that come in, a new administration comes in, and they end up becoming what I call captured by the bureaucracy, and they're afraid to do anything about it. Just a quick story. Years ago, I remember I had a fellow come into my office that wanted to audit our state phone bill. This is when I was CIO in Massachusetts. Well, lo and behold, we let him do it, and he only got paid if he saved us money. We got a $7 million check from the local, the regional Bell operating company, $7 million. And I tried to do that here in California, and I couldn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. And one of the reasons is because people don't want to admit they're making a mistake, paying out the money. And that's just a small example. State of California, if you're a vendor in the state of California, you get paid by a check, a paper warrant. In Massachusetts, you're not even allowed to be a vendor if you don't take electronic payments. So all of us can go home tonight and pay our bills online. No problem. State of California? No, we send out a paper check. 300 million paper checks a year. Do the math, the postage alone is $140 million. And so, hey, well, that's not going to solve the budget deficit. Well, let's look at bigger things. Let's go back to that Medi-Cal again. That is a $24 billion state program. 24. The state says there's a 1% fraud rate. The U.S. General Accountability Office, of which I've been a member of on their advisory committee for 15 years, says the rate's 20%. And my good friend Malcolm Sparrow from Harvard says it could be 30%. So let's just say it's 10%. That's $2.5 billion the state could save every year. And you could look at the same thing in unpaid taxes. The Sacramento Bee had a story not too long ago. $10 billion a year in unpaid state taxes. So over the last 10 years, that's $100 billion. You got to do something about that. You got to go after that money. You're not going to do it by a bunch of clerks in a big room. You need technology to solve those problems.
How will making the state's top technology officer cabinet level, how will that help? Well,
it is a cabinet level today. It won't be in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And it's very simple. When you have a if you've been in government, the cabinet is where it's at. The governor's immediate office and the cabinet. And anybody that's not in the cabinet, they don't get a seat at the table. They're not a senior policy advisor. So consequently, anytime you want to do anything, and I'll give you a simple example. When I had the job here, they told me it was a cabinet level agency. Well, there's a difference between cabinet level and one that reports to the governor. I wasn't on the cabinet. So if I want to consolidate data centers across different cabinet offices, it's a lot easier to do if they report to me. If they report to another cabinet secretary, you got a fight on your hands from day one. It took 15 years to consolidate data centers in California just because of that. And now we're going back to this. Now we're going back to the 20th century. It'll be a generation before they have another state CIO that's in the cabinet. And it's really a shame.
Are there other states in the union that you think are doing a good job?
26 states. The CIO reports directly to the governor. The others are all, it's best practices. It's considered best practices by the National Association of State CIOs, of which I was a member. It's considered best practices by the National Governors Association, best practices by the Budget Office Association, best practices by GAO. I mean, it's just a plain and simple thing. And again, look at the numbers. If you're spending $10 billion, which is basically 10% of the budget on this, you really should have somebody that knows what they're doing, not somebody that's relegated down and going to report now to some Secretary of Business Operations. You know, I gave the story the other day how important it was when Bill Gates resigned as president of Microsoft. He didn't take a job in the motor pool. He didn't take a job as an accounting clerk, a human resource clerk in an operations agency. He became the chief technology officer of Microsoft. That shows you how important it is. And if you talk to any CEO in Silicon Valley about where their CIO sits and whether they're on the Senior Leadership Council, they'd laugh if they weren't. That's the most important thing they think of. The most important thing in their whole portfolio is their technology. I mean, duh.
Outside of the CIO, are there other states that are kind of holding technology to the level that you think California should be?
There's a number of states that are considered to be at the forefront of some of the things we're doing, and California was one until the governor's budget, State of the State and Budget came out in January. Certainly Virginia is considered to have a strong model. Texas is considered to have a strong model. But it's not so much whether this state or it can be even Rhode Island's doing a great job. And I've got, you know, my old friend Jack Alabin over there. It's not so much which state and how big it is. It's whether there's a champion in the corner office of the Capitol, in the governors. It's the governors. If the governor's a champion of technology, it all works out. If he or she isn't, it ain't going to work out.
Good.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Thank you very much.